finding the play in these conflicts.
Interesting because just the word play, they use it differently. I thought at first it was like, wow, they're gonna do like theater and things, and actually the way they say play, it's very much the attitude of um, seeing the how things are flexible and how our behavior and the way we approach and react and interact with things, it's um, it's totally free and open. It's just that sometimes we don't realize that there's so much different ways of playing with relating. It could be like, oh, I'm gonna play at being rude with everybody and see what happens. And it's very much using a group as an exploration of um how it is to be human, how it is to be relating with each other, what are the ways that I tend to be stuck in, and what happens if I do the opposite, complete opposite. So it's like an experiment, very much about relating. But there's no on stage, nothing.
Okay, so
So
it's
daily life.
and that opposite, is that's kind of sounds to me a bit like twinning. That kind of has that concept of the twin of sort of moving into a twin or just moving into an other.
A polarity.
Right.
Yeah. I don't associate twin with opposite, more like with something quite similar and family like. But yeah, here is more like the paradox, okay. And that's very much in the fooling practice or in the
Mm.
voice dialogue practice is acknowledging that we are made of polarities. And it's funny. I like to say like we are a funny it's a funny thing to arrive at on Earth because we come with so many different paradoxes inside of us. I see it like as a board game. It's like, okay, you're gonna have like a part that wants to travel everywhere and a part that really wants to stay home,
Mm.
and a part that's scared of other people, but another one who wants to do shows on stage, and it's like, good luck. There you go.
Yeah, I'm facing that at the moment very much, both of those, because I'm sitting writing a lot and I've also got quite a lot of shows coming up and I'm very
Yeah.
kind of
Uh,
so how did you first discover fooling? That's the sort of first main question, really. It's
mhm.
where did you come across it? What were you doing before it?
Well, I came across while I was studying voice dialogue. So I was feeling quite lost when I was 28, like feeling really overwhelmed by my emotions and not really knowing how to actually separate. And I came across those people. I was traveling on my bike in Scotland, and I come across those people who are part of a training of voice dialogue, and they gave me one session, and it was really strange to be invited to move into another part, another space to speak from a part of me with the feeling of like, wow, they're really interested about this uniqueness of this part and how it functions, and I'm having another feeling of it by them interviewing me basically, and then coming out and then going to the opposite, and then standing between both. And it really at the start it was really hard for my mind to understand this thing that I can actually move between different parts. But after a while, I felt like, wow, I'm so curious. And so I trained in voice dialogue. I followed the training, and then the way that we train is like we give session to each other directly. So it's like by being able to talk with someone else's different parts, we get to know our parts, because to talk with a part that wants to know everything, you need to tap into this part in you to really meet the one in the other. So it's like a mirroring
Mm.
um, exercise of traveling between the different parts inside. And so I did that, and then realized I really liked it and started facilitating. And then I met there was these people who were also part of the training that were really loud and really expressive, and the rest was kind of like personal development and kind of lots of English people and kind of like quiet. And then there was this like boisterous part people who would just like get really angry and then laugh about it, and I was a bit scared about it. And then I realized there was a group of people who um, were with trained with Frankie Anderson. And it's funny because Frankie, she did her own journey of like theater, mime, and all of that, and all of these really much art based and performances, and then felt bored of it. And then she asked herself, which kind of what does my player need to be able to feel more fulfilled? And she, from the question, she created the form of fooling, and really acknowledging that she has many parts inside. And then she heard about the voice dialogue training. She says like, wow, this is the same thing that I do. But voice dialogue comes from a therapeutic background, and she comes from a playful performance. And so she trained in that, and I met her there. And so I went to do a workshop with her once. I didn't really get it at first. It felt like it was too. There's something really interesting about that I'm still researching, um, about the fact of just being seen and to be in front of other people, being me. Like there's a lot of slight or big fright that can happen and like coping mechanism. And I think I was a bit in that. I was just like, what's happening? And so it took me a while to find my safety and then to play. And then once I kind of get it, I felt like I found a playground for adults. It's almost like I found a door for me to enter in, and it's like all those parts became like this big. I was gonna say toys, like a playground, kids playground, but like things to play with in a sense of like being enlivened by and feeling myself responding and energy passing through me that I never felt. It was most like I stand into a part and suddenly I become this thing and I'm discovering it. And so it felt really thrilling and expansive.
So you came from voice dialogue to phonics, but you've developed both of those sort of side by side then. You've sort of carried on developing them side by side.
Mm. And it's interesting because in voice dialogue, actually, you don't talk between parts.
Oh, because you have the
Everything,
facility, you talk to the facilitator. Yeah.
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 So it's like a tool for awareness.
Mm.
And it's about this, it's about we don't fix anything. It's just that we really give much more space to what is. And when there is and then we encourage when there is some emotions that are stuck, or when there's a cluster, there's part of just holding onto each other, and it just becomes these repetitive patterns and that we get stuck into. So we have to untangle like wool. Um, and then the person kind of we work a lot with awareness, is like going fully in and then stepping out, being aware of it. This is the healing.
Right. So the relationship of voice dialogue to Fool then is voice dialogue is a tool to help untangle that so that when you step into a full space, you're freer in those.
If you would do both,
Yeah.
it's the constant finding out about the difference. But what I've found so far is that fooling feels very much horizontal. It's like I'm stepping into my being space and I'm discovering, oh, there's this part here that wants to destroy the wall, and I'm just gonna go and I'm become like this part. And then from here there's another part that comes and that wants to rest, and I'm going to it, and it's like I'm giving space to my experience as it pops on the side.
Mhm.
And in voice dialogue, what we do is that we will go is like, oh, I want to destroy the wall. And you as a facilitator will say to me, tell me more about destroying the wall. And it's like, how does it feel? And what interests you? And how do you feel in the body? And how long have you been there? And um, how much space you have in Christie's life. And it becomes like a very vertical, like excavating, it's almost like excavating the sculpture of one aspect. That there might be like
Okay.
spiritual, and it's very biographical,
Mhm.
and it's in depth, and it's in relation to my life, the way it acts, but also the whole power of it. And so it's brings out the gift, the uniqueness, and it's almost like having a team inside of me, but like to fully take opportunity of all the gift of this part. So you kind of stay really focused in it. And then I step out of it, and then I will have awareness of this part there. And in voice dialogue, which I'm starting to blend as well with fooling, you all those parts, they're like a team for us. And so if I if I want to go in the woods and I feel a bit bored, I might bring a bit this part because she's wild and she is like playful, and so I can start to um, tweak how I want to be instead of just being like, oh, I'm thinking about my work and then I know actually I want a bit of wilderness, or I want a bit of sleepiness, or I want the poet in me, or I want the part that's really silent and Buddha-like, and so there's a lot of freedom. It is very much like I call it the inner village.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's about like, okay, right now I want to go and do some cooking. Okay, I want some creative parts. I want somebody that's kind of focused, and I want sensuals that can really enjoy and get turned on by food, for example. And I know all those parts, and I bring them in, and I can have a bit of one, I have a bit of the other, and then blend them like a smoothie, and then see, okay, right now this is me made of all of them. So it's very creative in a way and really empowered and
Yeah.
diverse.
I'm
So
quite fluid sort of between.
yeah, you kind of respond. There's much more fluidity in responding to life with a lot of much more colors and choice. And so that yeah, the voice dialogue, it's a very much like DIY toolbox. How do we live with so many characters inside of us? And how do we separate from them and then the fooling. Um, for me, it's like it's much more like mystical in a way, or mysterious, because we use the setting of theater, which is quite trancy and almost religious, or like it brings out something else about being seen and being in connection with ourselves, but also the others and the mystery. And in that container, there are parts in me that never comes out in voice dialogue that comes into fooling
Right.
before having the space, and also because there's a lot of influence of the audience, who is in the audience, what comes up in the player. And so in fooling, like it's in my sense is very much like being in service, firstly when we start of ourselves, like discovering our gang and how can I play with myself without getting stuck, and then after what wants to come through me, and then giving voice to this in service of the group. And then we learn techniques to be able to deepen apart and to be able to, yeah. And for me the fool is like, how can we self-facilitate on stage, so knowing like, oh, I feel discomfort, okay, I know how to play this with discomfort.
Mm.
So it's like a DIY. There's also like tools um to be able to play with whatever is there. And that's what I shared in my workshop, that for me the fool is this magical aspects in us that can open any doors. It can be any doors.
What are you doing when you first step into that space that's been created? What's happening with you as a fool, and what's happening with you as a teacher of fool that you're trying to get your people who are coming to feel or be, I suppose. What's that first sort of impulse?
Is to feel at ease, to notice what do I need to feel at ease to step into that space as a player.
Hmm.
What comes up and what do I need to be able to be with that? And how can I find my pleasure in being on stage just for myself? And to start with is very much, I put a strong emphasis on this is space for you. Other people are being with you, giving you space. Can you receive it? And what does he bring? And it's always this very poignant, such a craving to be seen and such a fear about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it feels like this is the first initiation of like feeling like, oh, maybe all those times that I long just to be seen, just look at me, like, like there's this the kind of biological need to be able to complete our development. And there's the whole neuroscience about that. And so that's where I come as well from the therapeutic background. My first training was therapeutic, and so it's like that really interests me. So what do I need to be allow myself to be seen and and to be with the fear as well, which is such a strong one as for us as human beings. And so yeah, as a facilitator, my role is to really very much direct people to this way of seeing theater, which is a bit of like a trick. I'm tricking them. It's funny because you can call that a trick or just a manipulation or a way of seeing things where they see this is space for you. There's nothing you have to do. Like, what do you need? And what happens when you give that to yourself? And yeah, there's a lot about how do I find regulation on stage and what do I need with what I feel in all of this. And once they kind of drop into that and they feel like, oh, I feel so nice, then the whole system regulates. It brings safety, and then all the other parts can come out, explore, and then they can come back to that nest of safety.
Mm.
So my work is very strongly funded on that, this kind of home base. Like Frankie says, like the full image is like 1 foot on the cliff and 1 foot above the cliff, and it's like what's known, what's safe, what's my foot on the cliff,
Mm.
and where is it so that I can come back and then go and explore edges and then coming back.
But you've always got that opportunity to come back to that
Yes.
egg safe space sort of.
Yeah.
So where for you in that is the audience? What happens in that relationship between the fool and the audience then?
Mm-hmm. So once there is like a kind of good enough sense of like, this is me, this is what is happening, there's nothing I have to give to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just allowing life unfolding through me because I feel safe and it feels really nice. Oh, I can be with myself and there's someone else there. So it's like this cocoon of way of being. Then I can start, it's like progressively the way that I kind of keep on crafting the practice, like progressively, for example, naming what is happening, but without looking at the audience, so that I can really stay with me. Because a lot of our behaviors, and I see also, especially with people who do performance, we start to be strongly in connection with the audience, feeding directly from the audience.
That's what I'm like so much as a performer,
From
'cause
there.
trained in that.
Yeah. And so it's like it's one way of doing it. This is my edge, so I'm also learning about that.
Mm.
Um, and I also realize how much it's easy to get to lose the diversity of the experiences.
Because you hone in on one thing that yeah.
Yes, and what fascinates me so much about this is like we are so. It's like I like the inner village or the inner world inside. It's like it's so wide, and I keep on discovering new aspects.
Mm.
And I think I'm naturally quite yin and going in, and it's why I'm quite good at this practice. And I'm also challenging myself in being more yang and in the connection with the audience. Um, but yeah, so the practice is like going in, finding safety, starting to name what is happening, and finding just the right edge where, oh, how is it that I can come in connection with the other, but I'm not losing myself?
Yeah.
And then a piece around just looking at someone else and then naming like, oh, I want to please, I want to look good, I want this, I want that. Like all the parts that comes. It's like it feels like the practice is like passing like thresholds
Mm.
of like or initiations to the other without losing oneself.
The point of the fool is the ability to go, well, I was there, but now I can be over here because I don't have to stay fixed in that. And that if you come out of that safety cocoon and you touch the audience, if you get drawn too much into the audience, you then can get stuck in that rather
Mhm.
than going, yeah, but actually I might also want to be over here, or there might be some play over there.
Yes, and I think we are so culturally really drawn to, oh, how are other
Mm,
people doing? What's
mm,
television showing? We learn so much through mirroring and
mm,
copying.
mm,
But then we learn things that we might not really want or that are
mm.
not really us. So here's very much like a deconstruction of some of the patterns to find out what happens if I don't copy.
Could I talk a bit about the inner village then? Do you see the inner village as masks?
Hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting because in voice dialogue, I would talk about them as parts,
Right.
and then in fooling as masks. And I think the way one of the reasons I like this word mask is because it brings theater,
Mm,
and in a way, it brings like our consciousness into the mystical and the something a bit less personal. It's just like, okay, we are all playing roles. We don't know who we are. We have all those aspects. And there's something much more fluid about, oh, this is a mask of me. And at the same time, they're not, because mask can be, and it can be like I'm hiding behind.
mm, mm,
And for me, the way I see it is like mask are like, it's like a bus stop. It's just a place I might just stop there and think that this is home. But no, it's just a bus stop. It's just a place, and we can move out of them and yeah,
I
the,
sorry, go on.
there's like always this question about who are we? Are we the parts? Are we the one in between? And I guess for me right now, what makes sense to my being is very much like the voice dialogue approach of like we are made of parts and we are the one in the middle. And the fool is the one that just says, great, look at that. I've got a whole village to explore, and I'm gonna go and explore how is it to be a bitch, how is it to be a dormouse, and how is it to be a cloud. And so the fool has got like the, the tools to go to any of them, any of those masks. Um,
So this is something I wanted to get into talking about masks. Is then are they archetypes in there? Is that something that you see them as?
the way that we learned about them in voice dialogue, which makes sense to me, is that there's like different levels of experience. Like if you have like circles within circles, like right in the middle is me personal. This is me with the part that struggles to organize.
Mm,
There's me with the child that feels scared to be left alone. And as the same aspect, if you zoom a bit out and like move a bit more into the kind of transpersonal aspects of being human, there's a part that's like archetypally kind of really chaotic. Yeah. And it's a way of being. And the way that I experience it in voice dialogue, sometimes I've been moving into archetypes like the good mother, and it felt like a trip. Like it's very all encompassing, the whole room change, and the facilitator might say, like, wow, this is really humbling. And like we are able to connect and embody archetypal presence a bit, maybe like with the commedia dell'arte. It's like source of energies.
mm,
And so for me, like they are all archetypes, and there's a lot of power as well of realizing, like, stepping out of the personal, saying like this is an archetypal fight, this is a myth, and all the myths that have been shared. And Frankie Anderson is so great with that, to kind of like keep on saying, wow, I'm seeing this myth here. So it's really to take from the personal out to the transpersonal, to understand that these are patterns and that we are being played by like strong energy archetypes as like
mm,
are like I don't know how to describe them right now, but it's like a source of energy that has a texture and a feel to it and a way of seeing things. It's like magnets, but there's like a lot of them, and we are being pulled. And I do believe maybe like linked with chart, if we believe in stars, like we have some archetypes that are stronger. And it's quite a journey just to be human, because these parts or archetypes have like a strong pull in us, like pulling us one direction, or like the wounded healer, or
Mm.
the mother wants to be a mother, but she can't have a baby, and it's very like currents in the ocean that just pulls us from one place to the other. And so like in voice dialogue in fooling, what it does is that it just makes it much more clear what's actually happening. What's happening in me? Why am I feeling twisted and stuck and conflicted and triggered and all this? And it's very much like I have an image like now of a picnic table, a picnic cloth. You just put it on the grass, and it says, okay, there's this part there, this part. This is what is happening inside, instead of everything being so close that we can't see. And
Mm.
we and so like the whole thing is the feeling of like hearts are playing us instead of us playing them. And so that's very much the whole practice in the fooling. And I love so much when Frankie named that. It's like play the parts before they play you. And so, and it's through a lot of it is through awareness that we can do this, and by fully moving into them um, in an embodied way, and then stepping out of them. And then to come back to your question about archetypes, then yeah, we can choose like, oh, I'm gonna go into archetype. I'm gonna be the good mother now, and I'm gonna fully offer that. And so the fooling is like it's a place to practice these different levels of consciousness and being present, and then we can use that in daily life. We can step into, for a friend, I can say, I'm gonna be the good mother now and come and rest, and I can move into this kind of archetypal mother, and then my friends can rest into that, or I can play with being a very controlling person with a friend of mine. Then they might play whatever comes up for them. But then I remember, I'm doing a tangent here, but I remember, so one of my other voice dialogue teachers said, James Priest was saying how finding out about parts is like it's really helpful to understand a bit more how we function and how to navigate between the other parts and come out of stuckness and all this. And then once we have a bit of a more of a sense of like, how do I navigate through all those aspects, then the play starts, because we can play with all those parts or archetypes with each other. And it's like sometimes it feels like a fantastic movie or something. Like it's absurd, it's quirky, like I might be into a part of me that wants to get everything perfect, and I might go and play strongly into this and really enjoy the kind of control and the power and the way of seeing. And then the other person might drop into what's happening in them when they see that this kind of perfectionist like part, and then they're gonna play this, and then I will play what's happening from this perfectionist part to be in relation with the other. And it's like again a board game or a video game. You don't know what's gonna happen, but once we have this kind of ability to tap into what's really happening and how can I embody it, tap into this force, this archetype that's coming through me, we open each other into like new lands.
And is that archetypal force there all the time? Is that what you're trying to get to then? So you start at your personal, you find your personal
Experience.
experience, and then you said there's like these thresholds spiraling out to find
Mhm.
the archetypes. And are you playing any of those parts, or are the archetypes always there, or
Um, it feels like once there is enough safety, it's easier to go into the archetype force, and then you can start to, yeah, to play, to allow, to let it infuse us and being carried by it. And it's like a song that would just like take you all of yourselves, and you just like on a journey, and you can rest on that force like a magnet. You just pull towards something. It's like, um, and I think for me, my experience is that the more I do the practice, the more easy it is to go into the archetype and to enjoy it. You know, I love to play the part of me that wants to kill everybody on stage
Right.
because it's such a relief. Like this, my sense is that because we are being influenced by those aspects, the part that wants to kill, the part that wants to possess, the part that is existentially scared of life. They are all playing us all the time, and so like to be able to go fully into them on stage is cathartic. And a lot of the time it's also for the audience and you can feel that. So it just brings even more. Um,
Yeah, so I was going to ask that. What's the audience getting from this experience?
mhm. For me, it's the food is almost invisible
Mm.
in the way that I practice and experience it. It's like it's the one that can just jump from one part to the other without getting identified of anything. And for this has access to everything. And so the experience as an audience is like the wonder of someone's psyche being like déroulé in French, like exposed without edges. Although there might be an edge of like I want to hide, but then they're gonna play that, and so it's quite a cathartic experience of the full smooth everything. It just allows everything, so energy can just flow through by and display what it is to be human being and give a sense as an audience that we can actually move freely. That is thrilling and painful and disgusting and all of this. But it's like this shapeshifter and um, everything is kind of feeling. That's the way that I feel the presence of the full archetype. It's not about being funny or silly. Some people use that in this way in some practices. Um, this can happen here, but it's more this can go anywhere and feel safe and access states of consciousness from themselves or from what's being in the room or what's happening in the world. And it's like a bit shamanic in that way and just brings back fluidity
Mm.
and openness and aliveness.
And the role of the Fool then in society with that is that a mirroring of society, or is it this sense of just showing, look, this can you can be this free, or is it that it's touching on areas that when we watch it, because the Fool has this ability to be free, that it's going to touch
Mhm.
sort of ideas in our mind.
I don't use or see the fool as a kind of like a direct like um, confronting politics or no, let me start it again. Um, I see the fool is helping us see what is happening without being completely blind to some of our behaviors. And so the fool, by its fluidity to move everywhere, just shows us our patterns. And when we are not in them and see them, it's just like, this is hilarious. Like, look at this person trying to please everybody. It's obvious that they are super anxious, but they don't see it. And so there is in a way it is, and I see it as a soulful rebellion and activism because we commit in this practice to not get identified, or if we get identified then we will play the part that feels identified and really want to stay into the way of seeing things. But we can see just by taking a little distance, if someone else play, and we do that in the workshops or camps, what's happening in our head on stage, we're just like, whoa, this is this is cute and painful and ridiculous. And so the fool gives this ability to see what's happening instead of being blind and sleepy in a way of behaving, a culture, society, and all of this. And what really interests me is how the outside society is active in us. I,
Almost like another archetype, or kind of like
more like a system, we
a
might
system.
complain about, the bankers and
Yeah,
people that don't care about each other and selfish, and I have all of that inside of me.
yeah.
And so it's by really going into it and playing those aspects and the way I've been conditioned and the way I also find safety in thinking only about myself or judging about others but not saying it or being like a manipulative woman and all this. Like by going into it, then I can step into the one that sees it all and then I can change it. And so for me, it is a confrontation with our style of life, and touching is something really, really beautiful because it's fascinating again and again how in Fooling Voice Dialogue, once we step out of stage and we see ourselves, in Fooling we do this after people give feedback in what they saw, we have new insights, we have like clarity that comes. It's like the a whole of a big way that we get stuck, I think, as human beings, that we don't see what we're doing. We get identified with ways of behaving, but it just needs a bit of like stepping out. Or if someone plays something, it's just like, oh wow, they are playing me, and now I can see. Then that's the freedom, and that's what the full practice allows, because it gives us this clarity, this authenticity, and this separation. And from there, other parts can come through. And in my experience, like this, we always tend to come to homeostasis, to a place of like we are like naturally aggressive and benevolent. And our benevolence, our love, the desire to give love and receive love is always there, but it's a lot of time occulted by power that just protects because there's a fear that we can't access. And so the Fool kind of like help us to give more space to all of this for that our genuine benevolence and care for each other comes through, and then it can be freed in our villages.
It seems to me that fooling is very mystical, or metaphysical, or magical in some way. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I think you've said these, is that fooling, in a sense, is an embodiment of the mysticality of theatre. That it seems to really work with that mystical. Would you?
I agree, and also we're not especially directly there. As we start the practice, there's a lot of like personal. It's like, okay, this is me being seen by others. Oh, I hate this and I want it. And there is not, in my sense, yet really mystical, or at least it doesn't tap so much into this. It's about it's kind of personal, me finding my way to just accept my experience to start with, find a way to express it, and then it kind of moves. And then once we become more experienced players, that we have a safety and we drop into the play, then there it can go. I might become this. I have a memory of a workshop with you where I stepped into this kind of fountain of grief. And it felt really trancy and it's so beautiful. I was just like weeping and had these beautiful images of like being by the water, by the woods, and my body was shaking. And I didn't know why I was crying. And I remember the audience saying like why it was like it really like rippled through the space and something was moved. And so that it is the fooling allows, for me, it's like the magic of what it is when we are together, when there is safety. It feels like our potential as human beings. We just touch a bit into it, and there's something that theater brings and gatherings brings, where together we can step into other altered state of consciousness when there's enough safety and
Mm.
openness, and we
Mm.
can receive things that wants to come through us. And yeah, it demands a bit of getting familiar with the practice.
What I love about falling is it comes from the personal into that, the way into that other, it seems, it's by being in yourself rather than trying to go to these grand things. It says
Mm-hmm.
just they're actually in there.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to find, you have to look in and find them. And these grand things, like you say, are kind of present because actually we're at the whim of these forces anyway. We
Mm-hmm.
just don't know most of the time.
And the egg, to take back your metaphor, really needs to be in a nest of a group of people.
Right. Right.
Like that's a very important, it's like it's a cooking pot, the
Mm.
connection that we bring together. And it feels to me like there's so much there when we feel safe and we put our attention inside of ourselves in connection with others. It's
Those.
like magic.
Mm.
So it's very much the context. Like I can't do fooling by myself. I can do a little bit, but it stays quite personal in a way. But then the power of like being seen in the theater, it's very much the container that
Mm.
that allows all of this. And I just wanted to respond to what you were saying about trying to reach the archetypes. I I don't have this sense of trying to, because it feels like if I try to, it goes.
Mm.
And that's the kind of humbleness about the fooling practice. It's like we don't get to choose what's going to be played. And we don't know if we're going to be back into a personal, kind of like really painful memory to be, I don't know, stuck into a toilet when we were kids and there was nobody around.
Yeah.
Or if we might become, um, yeah, this kind of magic being, or this water creature, or whatever it might be. Yeah,
Just not
like
trying so much as just being in the space where that can happen.
yes, yes. I just know that like some other fooling practice can be quite focus orientated.
Mm.
There's a place to get to, a bit more yang maybe.
Mm.
And here is very yin. It's like if an archetype grace ourselves of their presence, then we shall just receive and delight from them. But there's no, it's not also especially the aim, because the personal can be deeply moving.
Mm.
People can replay things that are there, they're struggling with, in the nitty-gritty of like being human. It's also very, very powerful.
Okay, yeah. So it's more a flow of wherever it's going. It can go there, but it doesn't have to. It could stay very personal. It could go into these
Yeah.
areas. Yeah.
Like I discovered my inner toddler in a being space in a fooling workshop, where I felt like so amazed by seeing my feet like moving in the air.
Right.
And I felt this feeling of total fullness. And there was nothing more important. And I don't have actually memories of being a toddler, but there I had a sense of like, wow, this is how it is possible to just be delighted. And since then, I can access that.
Right.
I can access this pure joy of just being and seeing my hand, and the warmth that comes in my whole being in all of this. And so
Mm.
that's another gift about both practice for that fooling, is that we get to meet parts, we can get to activate them, and then they are available.
And then they're available from there. So the fooling training, in a sense, is finding that access to those parts, and then they're accessible from then
Yeah.
on.
And Frankie say that, and I love this, that fooling is a laboratory for life. So we get to play and explore, okay, what's happening in me? What are the conflict? Where I'm getting stuck in all of this? Finding new ways in, new parts in, and then we can practice and play with that in life, outside of the play setting, or at least outside the workshop or the fooling practice.
So
But
you were
it's
saying
very,
you can
it's
take that into the woods and play different parts of yourself in the woods or in the street or wherever,
yeah,
cooking.
but also in your daily life. It's like a zooming in. It's like, oh, I get into this fight with my partner.
Mm,
Oh, I get like always like victim with my work. Okay,
mm.
let's play that on all the parts, because the idea is that we are all of them. What triggers us in life, it's us that we are projecting outside. So here we kind of reclaim it, play with them. And then there's more spaciousness to play in life in a different way in our day-to-day space. So it's very much like an exploration, a opening.
Mm. Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Chrissy. That fascinating discussion. That. Thank you so much. Nice to speak with you.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's amazing that you're doing this. It really gives me lots of joy and curiosity. I feel so much gratitude for you to do this piece. I think it's so unique, and the amount of energy and love you're putting into this is very
yeah, thank you.
inspiring.
I just feel like fooling is such a fascinating form, and no one's looked at it, and it because it's quite
No.
small. It's quite a small community. It doesn't really register, and I feel like it should register because I mean, it's life transforming for me. It's transforming of my own practices,
Mhm.
my own theatrical practices, is now completely touched.